Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to another EVE Online discussion video, and in today's video we are going to talk about the latest dev blog about the Upwell refineries that should be coming out somewhere after the summer, if I remember correctly, is the estimated timetable. One thing to note is that all of this is definitely subject to change. CCP is bringing out this dev blog before FanFest so that at FanFest they can actually have healthy discussions about all the potential cool stuff and problems that could arise from these Upwell refineries. So we'll start with covering the dev blog itself a little bit. The mechanic, it's based a lot around this one picture here, moon mining. That is probably the bulk of the interest in the community, because it's going to replace the current moon mining mechanics, which is basically put a POS at the moon that can be moon mined, set everything up and then fuel the POS, and it'll just give you a steady rate of moon materials. They are moving away from that into a completely different system that requires active mining in order to actually get the moon materials. So the plan is that you can have either a medium or a large refinery, so no excels for this one. The cost is aimed to be between the engineering complexes and the citadels themselves, so somewhere in between the two. That gives us a fair idea. Probably around $1 billion is for an M refinery, and if you put it in the right place, close enough to a moon that can be moon mined, then you'll be able to fit a special drilling rig, or I shouldn't say rig, but a special drilling module that will allow you to pull out a chunk of the moon. This chunk will actually be visible in space on grid. It will then slowly be tractored towards the refinery over the course of a few days, probably a week or maybe even more than that. And after that, the refinery is going to blow up that chunk of moon, and it will create mineable belts or a mineable belt by doing that. So very interesting mechanic. What I like is the scalability that CCP is planning for this. If you want to mine this very often, but you don't want very long mining sessions, you can basically choose to take out a smaller chunk of the moon. It'll be done more quickly, it'll be tractored more quickly, and you'll be able to blow that up, let's say once a week or something like that. If on the other hand you want the big yields, you want to get everything done in a single session, you'll be able to grab a bigger chunk of that. It's gonna take more time. I think at the upper time scale, we're talking a month or more, so once a month or maybe once every month and a half, 6 weeks or something like that, for the block of the moon to be blown up and then to become mineable. I should maybe add, I also listened to CCP Fuzzy on a stream from the Imperium, and it was actually pretty interesting. There was a lot of talk about the system here with the moon mining. That's where I know that the smallest scale, basically the fastest rate of getting into the mining itself would be around once a week, although again keep in mind all of this is subject to change. And then the longest one was probably more than a month. That's what CCP Fuzzy was aiming at the moment, but of course none of this is set in stone. So next up, for some people a little bit controversial, there will be something called a mining ledger, which will basically be a spreadsheet that will give the owner of the refinery the ability to check anyone that has mined from those created belts. It'll basically allow you to spot thieves, and thus to maybe react to the fact that someone has stolen from you. It should also allow you to basically allow your entire alliance to mine in there, and then to maybe buy up the materials more easily, or set up rewards or things like that with the mining ledger. It's quite interesting. I think that it's mostly going to be an alliance-based usage. If I myself would somehow manage to set up maybe one of these refineries in low sec, on a moon that can actually be moon mined, I don't think that I'm going to bother that much with the ledger, just to try and catch out or find out that a couple of other guys are mining from these moon materials. But okay, it's planned to be in the game. It's also planned to become something that might be the baseline for ledgers in other aspects of the game as well, which could in some aspects be very, very interesting. Although some people don't like the idea of basically giving out this kind of intel. If you do the moon mining, if you have this refinery up, it's a little bit up to you to try and keep an eye on the entire operation and not give thieves the chance to just make off with the materials that you've grabbed from that moon. So I can understand both perspectives, but most people that say, you know, you shouldn't give this free intel, CCP Fuzzy clearly said that he doesn't consider it to be free intel because it's only for the owner of the refinery, who of course has to set it up and fuel it. So from that perspective, I would agree that it's not free intel. The question is this intel that you think should be added to the game? Personally, I don't mind it. I think it could find some cool uses as well in other aspects of the game later on. So I like the fact that they're developing this technology. And we also have reactions, of course. This at the moment is also happening in bosses, and this is also going to move into these refineries. Now, for people like myself that don't live in null or low sec and that don't do any moon mining, is there any reason to still go for these Upwell refineries? Well, the good news is there's no reason not to, because the current plan is that on the day of release of these refineries, every rig that is currently in a citadel or another structure that is tied to reprocessing is going to be reimbursed to the player. So you'll find that in the inventory and not in the rig slot anymore, so that it doesn't get destroyed. That'll give you a chance to grab a refinery of your own and then use the rig in there for what will presumably become the best yields possible. I think that a refinery will win out on a citadel with the best possible rig. So that is something that has been thought about, and it's pretty obvious that the fact that someone donated a Tech 2 refining rig in the citadel is not a problem, because I'll just get the Tech 2 rig and I'll be able to put that into a refinery the day of the patch. Also a couple of I think important notes to make that I gathered from all of this. The idea for the moon mining is that this will replace the current moon mining system on patch day. There is going to be no overlap. The day that they come out with the refineries, they will just stop getting a yield from any bosses that are currently or that are mining from moons at that point. Just gonna stop at that point. Now there is maybe a little bit of talk. It was a question that was dropped. I actually think it's an interesting one, and the correct one. Shouldn't CCP then consider to maybe release blueprints of the refineries a little bit early to give people the chance to at least be ready for setting up the refineries? So just allow them to make refineries but not deploy them just yet, so that alliances can keep going with their Tech 2 production. To that, CCP's Fuzzy said that he's not entirely sure. It is possible, so it's something that might be doable, but on the other hand, he's thinking that there are big enough stocks out there. There is no threat to Tech 2 production if for a couple of days people are not able to moon mine in the classical way. And so he thinks that it could actually be an interesting in-game mechanic to have another race, another economic race, to be amongst the first to make a refinery and then to get the benefits from that as well, inside alliances and possibly outside of alliances. So I think that's pretty much it. Another set of structures. I would say that the important aspects here is that, number one, the cost is going to be between let's say a Raitaru and a Citadel, so that's decently expensive. It's going to take a decent amount of PI materials to do that, so I do expect that market to move the closer we get to release and when we get actual numbers for what is needed to construct those. Another thing is, of course, that they will give you back your reprocessing rigs that are currently mostly, I would say, in Citadels, and as a result, I think that these will become quite common, because when it comes to reprocessing people do want the very best yield, and I myself, for instance, am now fully planning to at least get an M refinery ready, bring over the reprocessing facility from the Citadel and the rigs into a refinery, a forced structure, and just get the refinery done there for the very best yield. So I think that is definitely going to happen, which again to me is an indication that we'll have strong demand for blueprints. So I'm definitely planning to buy a blueprint original of this structure as well. And I actually think that we'll see a lot of these pop up, even though at the moment there is a lot of reprocessing being done in existing structures, because I do think, if I'm not mistaken, it's called a refinery. It's all about resource gathering and resource reprocessing. It is going to get a better yield than what you can do at the moment in the citadels or in the engineering complexes. So yeah, pretty massive dev block here. I definitely highly encourage you to go through the whole thing and to give your comments and your questions to CCP. At the moment they're definitely also still looking for potential problems, but also potential good ideas when it comes to these refineries. And that is going to be basically the second part of this video. I want to share with you guys my idea of bringing moon mining, the new mechanic where you basically pull out a chunk from the moon and then create mineable belts. I want to see that brought to wormhole space 100%. I think that CCP Fuzzy also, I mean, there were some hints that considering the very strong demand for this in all the comments that we have seen so far after this dev blog, for this mechanic to be brought in other spaces as well, I think CCP is going to do everything possible to actually get that on the roadmap. And so my idea would be, I understand that you don't want to disrupt the Tech 2 market too much. The potential full production might actually become a little bit higher already with the system, is what CCP Fuzzy said, but with disruptions we might actually get close to the current yields. And so it's fully understandable that you don't want to bring Tech 2 moon materials in wormhole space or in HiSec or from other moons than the ones that are already in the game. But my idea to bring the mechanic itself to these spaces would be just use Tech 1 minerals, use the base minerals. That's completely okay. In fact, I think it could become a very useful mechanic to provide these kind of spaces that often have different bottlenecks with a way of creating sinks of the minerals faucets of the minerals that they have a shortage of. I know that wormhole space often needs to bring in massive amounts of tritanium for their constructions inside of wormhole space, and in nullsec, Mexalon is often an actual bottleneck. And so my idea would be that in wormhole space you would be able to grab all the minerals from this moon mining activity, and in HiSec you would be able to just grab the HiSec minerals, which would be, in my opinion, tritanium, pyrite, Mexalon and isogen. How would the mechanic work? Well, it would be normal, especially in Empire space, that the Empires would not allow you to grab the very best of all of those materials. So you would have a sort of a crystal inside the like a charge, like a mining crystal for the drill that is going to do the drilling on the moon. And I would basically use some sort of resonance technology to focus only on a single mineral. Let's say that you have a big bottleneck of tritanium in your wormhole, and for one cycle of the moon mining you want to produce nothing but tritanium. So you put in the right crystal, it's going to focus heavily on tritanium, you pull out the chunk and you blow it up, and what you get then is some mineable belt that will yield, let's call it unrefined tritanium, something that has the right proportions so that it's maybe a little bit better than just mining Veldspar, and will of course also yield nothing but tritanium itself. I think that could be very interesting. In wormhole space you could go for the more expensive stuff like some Zydrine, Megasidruns, things like that. In HiSec you'd have to choose between tritanium, pyrite, Mexalon and isogen, but you would be able to mine something that's a bit better, a bit more efficient than just the straight ores from the belts. And in exchange, of course, you need to have a refinery on a moon with the fuel costs and all of that good stuff. I think it's a possibility. I think it might, I understand the slight risk of further disrupting the mineral market, in the sense that this would make even more transportation obsolete, but I think it could be a very cool way of actually bringing this moon mining mechanic into other spaces as well. So yeah, let me know what you think about that idea in the comments. And I, for one, am already very happy to see that CCP is hard at work bringing us refineries, and that, from what I've heard from CCP Fuzzy so far, he's definitely open to ideas and suggestions to bringing this very cool mechanic where you might actually see a big chunk of a moon being pulled away towards your refinery, actually on grid as you fly by in the co-incorporated structure place there. I think that would be extremely cool, and CCP is definitely open to trying to find like a solution for that, and hopefully bring that to the roadmap. So the more suggestions we throw out at them, the higher the chance I think that something will actually stick. That's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.